Life before supercars with Stephen Grove, and your life before supercars goes a long, long way back in the business world and the racing world as well. But where do you want to start, Steve? Racing or business? I'll give you the choice.
Oh, business probably, because you needed to get the business right to obviously go racing. So it's probably business. I mean, that goes back many, many years. The Grove Group's quite diverse, but we originally started in the hire of portable buildings to major construction projects. And then we moved into the manufacturing, did projects such as the 2006 Commonwealth Games. We built the Athletes Village. And it's significant was we're starting to talk to the appropriate parties now for the 2026 Commonwealth Games in Melbourne and the accommodation. So that's 20 years on. So that's sort of where we started, and we sort of grown from there into a whole lot of different businesses.
What are some of the things you can hire from Grove Hire?
Well, Grove Hire was the first business we started, so it's portable buildings and chemical toilets is the main thing. So big construction projects, most of the big construction projects we get involved in. We supply all the site administration, the lunchrooms, the change rooms, and then we sort of diversified there into the manufacturing of relocatable buildings. We've just finished a couple of big projects, one being the quarantine centre in Melbourne and the quarantine centre in Perth. So most of the work we do is federally or state government work, and do a lot of school work. And then from there we transitioned into a development company and then followed through to an investment company. So we invest in a lot of small cap organisations, and I sit on some of the boards, and you know, we sort of mentor some of the management coming through in those businesses.
Is it the classic, it started small and it grew, you had one, it became two, it became three, it became huge? Is that sort of how business worked for you?
Yeah, most definitely. I mean, it grew quite quickly. I mean, we've been going over 25 years now, but you know, we've progressed into, you know, alcohol, we're into food business, we're into such a variety of businesses now. It's sort of grown so big that it was a process where I thought I'd have more time to go racing, but it's obviously the opposite way now. You know, I'm really heavily still involved in the business. I've got the two, Brenton and Jade, my two sons coming through, but yeah, it's grown into quite a large organisation now.
Was the dream that your kids would follow you through the pathway of business, or did you half want them to chase the motorsport dream, particularly with Brenton?
No, that's an interesting point. No, I never built the businesses for the next generation. That was never a goal of mine. My oldest son, Jaden, he's a chippy by trade. He loves to build things. He builds a lot of our construction projects. He's not interested in the day-to-day motorsport. Brenton, I did think that would progress in a motorsport career, but to his credit, he had to make the decision. He either needed to come into the businesses and learn the business part of the life, or stick with motorsport and then try and work out what he would do at 35 or 40 when it finished. So he's just been appointed the CEO of one of our biggest business, our manufacturing business, and he's done that on merit. So he can go to the racing with the V8 Supercar team, but he's got the ability now to grow the business, and I've sort of moved into other, more growth areas.
A lot of people would know the companies that have your name on it, but there's other companies out there in the world, particularly like you mentioned with alcohol and things like that, the beverages that are totally separate. What sort of made you think we're going to go off in this direction?
It's interesting. It was only about 3 years ago. I was lucky enough, I raced at the Red Bull Ring with Super Cup, a Porsche feeder series F1, and we ended up going to Vienna, and I ended up coming across a plant-based breakfast outlet. And then I sort of said to my wife Tanya, I said, this is probably a growth industry for us. So we fast forward to now. We now got the rights in Australia and New Zealand for Copper Branch, which is a fast food outlet that's growing really quickly. It's plant-based all the way around the world, especially in Canada and Europe. So we've got the rights for Australia and New Zealand. So we opened our first store in a couple of weeks in Collingwood, and we plan to roll out 50 stores in the next 5 years, which is all plant-based fast food. That's called Copper Branch, doesn't have a Grove name to it. We own a distillery down in Tasmania where we make gin. It's just, the best gin in the world in its category in London recently. So we're rolling out gin. So that's a company called Southern Wild Distillery, but the brand is Dasher and Fisher, which you do see on the supercar. So the gin business is really starting to grow, and we're moving into jams, because there's a byproduct of making gin with strawberry. We have the strawberry composite, so we're actually using that now in jams. So there's a lot of other businesses that we're involved in that don't bear our name.
All right, let's talk motorsport. It's sort of twofold for you, because there was obviously getting involved with racing Porsches and racing with his son now, but also helping financially a lot of young drivers make it through the ranks as well. What was the desire there to throw some money behind young guys?
Well, I sort of started my own racing and really enjoyed that. And then we started to see the challenges that some of the youth had to try and get through. Motorsport's a pretty expensive sport to get through. So the first guy that we sort of really got behind was Scotty McLaughlin. And then he ended up doing some racing with me. We did some Pro-Am events together. We did the Bathurst 12-hour. There was himself, myself and Earl Bamber. We got involved with Earl Bamber. He sort of come over, we brought him back over from New Zealand when his career was starting to falter a little bit. You know, he had done a lot of racing over there and he sort of was looking for what was next for him. So he come over and he did a Porsche Pro-Am series with us. We did a round. I learned a lot from him. So himself and myself, we sort of did so much more racing together. And then we sort of supported him and helped him, you know, his endeavour, and then went on to Scotty and then Anton, and now we've got a couple of young kids in Oscar and Mika. Oscar's just come back from the World Go-Karting. We're setting up a plan for him to race in Australia, and we would expect, I mean, he's only 16, but we're hoping that we can groom him and get him into a supercar in maybe 3 or 4 years to see how that goes. So it's about the ability to actually try and help young kids come through, and I really enjoy watching their careers, and we've had a pretty good run with the 3 boys so far.
And your own profile as a racer has been pretty good for a Pro-Am guy. You've bagged Carrera Cup championships and race wins. You've had a chance to represent Australia. You've raced at Le Mans, all these amazing things. Did you think that you'd get to achieve all that stuff when you set out? No,
not really. I've been pretty lucky. I've pretty well raced everywhere in the world pretty well. Followed Supercars. I've done Monaco a couple of times. You know, followed Formula One for a year with Super Cups. We were the support category for half of their races, so we got to go to those circuits. Done a lot of 24 hours now, done a lot of 12 hours. You know, the calendar next week we go to Paul Ricard for the motorsport games, representing Australia again. We did that in Rome. We got a bronze medal, Brenton and I, in 2019. And then we follow on and we do the Dubai 24 hour in January, and then back for the Bathurst 12 hour. So I did a lot of sprint racing, a lot of short-term racing in Australia, Carrera Cup. I've always raced with Porsche, and then overseas racing in a Cup car. And now for me, it's all about the long distance races. You know, we do 3 or 4 of them. We were Spa this year, which didn't go to plan, but we've sort of done Spa this year, we've done Dubai this year, we've done the 12 hour. I think we've done 9 or 10 12 hours now, so yep. It's really interesting. Was this a boyhood dream of yours? Did you grow up wanting to be a race car driver and then you sort of end up becoming a businessman, or would this all sort of happen later in life where you go, made a bit of money here and I've done well in business, I can go and enjoy myself? I suppose as a kid, I think I've never missed a Bathurst, either watching on telly or been there. So as young as I can remember, I would always be watching Bathurst and following all the people that through. So it was probably a natural transition, but I needed to build a business first. You know, that took up all my time, took up 20 years of my life, really working 7 days a week to build the business. And now we have good, strong management team around us, and it gives me a bit of opportunity to go racing. And then it was obviously a natural progression to get into supercars by owning a team and trying to grow that and chase the dream and the challenges of actually trying to win Bathurst. You know, with a team, I've been lucky. I've had 5 class wins up there in the 12 hour. The recent one being 2019 when we won the Pro-Am race up there. But you know, to try and win that race is something that I really want to achieve. Did buying a supercars team seem unrealistic? Did that sort of take a bit of time for you to develop and go, gee, I might actually be able to do that? Yeah, it did take some time. We looked around. Originally we looked at maybe acquiring some licenses, but we couldn't do that. And then the opportunity with the Kelly family came up, so we thought that was something that we could grab hold of and build. But for me, it's more about the challenge. You know, the challenge, you know, can we get to the top, and how do we get to the top? And it's no different to business. Running a supercar team is just certainly no different to business, and getting the right people in place and the competitiveness. I mean, in all of the industries that I'm in my business, I compete with, you know, publicly listed or multinational companies from overseas, and they're big organisations, and to get out of bed every morning is something, you know, if I want to beat them. And there's no difference in supercars. We bring that. There's no, you know, we're certainly not there just to own a supercar team. We're there to win, and that's what drives me. So hopefully we can achieve something down the track. Have you always been a competitive person, do you think? You know, it doesn't matter what I do. I've always been super competitive, whether it be sport, motor racing, business, and you sort of need that drive, because that's what gets you out of bed. I mean, you know, people say business is generated around money. It's not so much about the money, it's about the challenge. The money comes with it, you know, the ability, you need to be able to make money to reinvest, to grow your business. So you obviously need to be able, have the ability to make money. But the successful people are the people that are driven. You know, it's about winning. It's about trying to find ways to beat your competitors, is what drives me.
Where do you see yourself in the team owner land? Because was it quite an unusual step to get to that level, and you're rubbing shoulders with a Roland Dane, a Brad Jones, you know, Dick Johnson, all these guys who are so famous in the sport. You sort of have a seat at that table now. What was that step up like?
Yeah, for me it was never, I mean, from a business perspective, I've always kept a really low profile. I mean, I don't have any social media per se because I always like to keep a low profile. Motorsport's opened that up a bit with my own racing. It opened it up a bit where I was more involved in the media. Now moving into supercars, you're right, they can have the glamour and they deserve that. I mean, Dick Johnson and guys like that have been around and have done an unbelievable job in motorsport. For me, it's about getting in there and winning, you know, and benchmarking myself against, you know, how well Roland's done. I mean, Roland's been a great success story, but you know, it's a bit premature, I thought, for him to retire. I really would like to have, you know, had a dip at trying to beat him, but there's other people there now that we want to try and beat, but that's the part that grows, you know, really grows us, you know, as business people and in our sport.
Where do you see the company sort of heading in the next sort of 5 to 10 years, and where do you see the race team sort of heading?
Yeah, listen, the company will continue to grow. We've got some great opportunities at the moment, and it's actually grown faster than I thought it would, you know, and we're continuing to grow, so there'll be a lot of effort in that. The supercar team, it's really about building the right infrastructure and building the right team. I'm not an engineer, I don't understand the processes and, you know, drag and, you know, getting a little bit more horsepower and all those terminologies they use. But, you know, for me, it's to mentor them, to bring the discipline that you need in business, to bring that into the team, to curate the right environment, get the right people, and most importantly, get people to understand that you can beat the Triple Eights of the world, you know, and they do a fantastic job, and good on them. But our job is to try and beat them and have an organisation that understands you can beat them. So that's the challenge. It's not proven yet, but we'll work hard to try and get up there.
Finally, you got any good business advice?
Oh, listen, the most important thing is if you have a passion for something, you'll succeed in it, there's no question. All you really need is a passion and the ability to work hard. And if you do those two things, they're the things that will make you succeed. There's no question. I met a lot of very, very successful business people over the journey, some really, really wealthy people. And through that process, they've all been driven and they've all believed in themselves. And most importantly, when you talk to them about whatever business they're in, the passion they have is what makes them successful.
It's been interesting, mate. Really off-Broadway chat to what we're normally doing in our world. So it's really cool and good to learn a bit more about the business, a bit more about you.
Thank you.